What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're talking about Deadstream. Written and directed by Joseph Winter and Vanessa Winter, this film also stars Joseph Winter, Melanie Stone, Jason K. Wixon, and tells the story of an influencer coming back after being canceled online and going into a haunted house, doing a huge live stream trying to gain all the followers he can and make a new name for himself. Hey guys, what's going on? If you're new here to the channel, if this movie on Shudder brought you here to this review, I definitely want to welcome you here to the channel. I talk about all things movies, TV, I do live streams, I do vlogs, I do supercut videos, and if you're interested in any and all of that, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sticking around here on the channel. I also have early screeners that I get consistently for the horror streaming service Shudder, so if you are a fan of that service and you do like to get some reviews for some of their films a little bit early, well, you can typically find that here on a weekly basis. If you're somebody who's been watching my videos, well, a big thanks to you for returning here once again to see my ugly face talk about another horror film. Today we're talking about Deadstream, and yeah, this was one that I watched last night. A lot of times when I watch these movies, I'll end up doing a review shortly after, and I wanted to sleep on this one a little bit more to see how I fully felt about it the next day. And the best way I can describe this film is a movie that I have a lot of admiration for the way that it was made. I didn't love everything about it, but I did find myself overall entertained, and thinking about it a little bit more, I can say that I do give it a recommendation, a thumbs up, and I do think it's a movie that's worth watching. However, I say that knowing that this is not a movie that's gonna work for everybody. I watched this movie with my roommate, who is also a YouTuber, The Big Rob Theory, and he wasn't a huge fan of it. He was a little bit, middle of the road on the film. He has a review for it coming out as well. And yeah, overall, this was a film that for me, I really enjoyed the fact that you can tell this was a film made on a very limited budget. And I think that they utilized that budget to the best of their abilities. I don't think this is the greatest this film could have been, but looking at just on IMDb, seeing that a lot of the people who starred in the film or that wrote the film also directed the film and also produced the film, and everybody who was on screen in a lot of ways was also helpful with things going on behind the screen. So I think ultimately, knowing that this was a small crew that created this very unique, interesting, and consistently entertaining film, ultimately makes me enjoy the film and admire it all that much more. On its own though, again, I don't think this is a film that's going to work for everybody. The first thing you got to know is that this is a horror comedy, and horror comedy isn't always going to work for everybody. If you've been watching the channel, you know that my favorite franchise in horror is Chucky, and not because those movies are the greatest in any way, shape, or form, but just because of how ridiculous, over the top, and self-aware they are. And ultimately, when it comes to horror, that's just right up my alley. So whenever Shudder has sent me a horror comedy film to cover on their platform, yeah, I've almost always been a fan of it, or at least enjoyed it, just because I enjoy the bonkers nature of horror comedy. So I don't want to get too far into spoilers, because going into this movie myself, I had just seen a couple of screenshots and the poster. I had not seen the trailer or read a synopsis. I knew that it was going to be some sort of found footage-esque film, and I knew that it was going to, maybe be a little bit silly, but I didn't know too much about it. So I'm going to veer away from talking too much about what happens in the film, but I feel like for the sake of this review, I need to at least talk about what at least the premise is of this film that is shown in some of the marketing. The movie focuses on a man named Sean Ruddy, who at the very beginning of the movie, the second the movie starts, we're jumping straight into his influencer world. He is an influencer, a social media influencer, which is interesting because the film I covered for Shudder last week, Sissy, also focuses on a character who is a social media influencer. And similar to that film, this film definitely has some moments of commentary on cancel culture, internet culture in and of itself, and influencer culture. And we're focusing on this guy, Sean, who right at the beginning we realize, or at least we hear from him, that he was canceled. He was banned from the internet for a little bit, and he's coming back now to try and reclaim his name, to try and make a better name for himself, and come and retry in the world, I guess, and to take what happened in the past and throw it to the past and try to better himself and show the world that he's a good person. They don't dive too deep into that from the very start, but yeah, the basic premise is that he's going to go to a haunted house, and he he's going to lock himself in there. He's going to take the spark plugs out of his car and throw them into the woods. And he's making a promise to both his audience and his sponsors that he has to stay in this haunted house overnight. He's one of those dudes that has a full rig and setup for streaming, where they have the GoPro on their forehead and the GoPro that's attached to something that's showing his face and something that's showing behind him, and he has tons of GoPros with him. So over the course of the night, he starts putting different GoPros across the house that he ends up kind of using as ghost patrol, I guess you can say, different cameras that he's using to see where the ghosts are or different things that are happening in this house. And he goes in as a skeptic. He doesn't really believe anything is going to happen, and the promise that he makes to his audience and his sponsors is that if he sees anything or if he hears anything, he has to go towards it, or he has to go to that room to see what's going on. As you can imagine from a horror film, things do start to happen, and now you have this guy who's locked himself into this house with all these cameras, and he's got to try to stay entertaining for the audience online, and he's trying to do this stream and trying to, again, better himself. He's trying to use this as a way to get people to like him more after what's apparently happened, but now he's also caught in this ghost situation in this house. I won't say too much more about what happens because I think this film is a little bit predictable. I think that as I was watching it, I pretty much knew everywhere that it was going to go. It felt in a lot of ways like a video game at times, where it was like the start of the level and the camera pans to some of the key things that you need to go get or do. It kind of felt that way while I was watching the movie, where I just was verbally just saying what's going to happen or verbally predicting where this was going to go, and I was right on all fronts. That's not to say that it was not entertaining. I did find myself entertained and engaged. I wasn't bored while watching it, but yeah, I did find that the writing and just the setup of a lot of things did feel fairly predictable over the course of the film. But yeah, with all of that said, I don't want to get too much deeper into what happens, but I did enjoy the film. I didn't think it was the greatest film, but I did find it to be entertaining and different. I'm kind of hit or miss when it comes to found footage. Some found footage films I love, and some of them are just okay. And in the case of this, I think it takes an interesting premise and just kind of expands upon that. And then when we talk about our leading role here, Sean, played by Joseph Winter, who's also one of the writers and the directors of this film, yeah, I thought he did a really great job, and he does a good job of playing a very over-the-top, almost obnoxious social media influencer, somebody who's just so desperate to try to prove themselves to the online world that they're willing to put themselves through absolutely anything. So there is definitely some commentary there on influencer culture, internet culture, and definitely cancel culture. And over the course of the film, what could be just a flat out obnoxious, annoying performance at times from a very loud, over-the-top main character in Sean Ruddy, over the course of the film, when things start to freak him out more and things start to get genuinely scary for him, even though the film definitely leans into being a horror comedy and being goofy, yeah, we start to kind of unravel some layers of his character, and we learn a little bit more in small moments of dialogue as to why he was canceled in the past and why, he's coming back to do this. When the movie starts, it all seems very goofy and, hey guys, we're gonna go and, go to this haunted house. And the movie is that for a lot of the time, but as things start to progress and things start to get more scary for him, he does start to kind of unravel a little bit and starts to kind of let out a bit of information on what happened in the past. And I feel like it really expanded upon his character and gave his character more depth that really kind of shows that you don't fully know what that person on screen is like behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, even you guys are watching me and you don't really know who I am. There's plenty of cuts in this video. There's plenty of edits that cut out the mistakes and different dead air moments. And you guys will never know that and never see that. And so this movie definitely focuses on stuff like that, while also just being a fun horror ghost movie. So overall, I enjoyed the film. I don't think it's going to work for everybody. I think that at times it can be overly goofy. I think that some of the special effects, definitely you can see where the limitations were with the budget. There's definitely a rubbery look to some of the special effects, but overall I enjoyed the look and feel of the film. They utilized one haunted house location to really create creepy atmosphere, and I think that really worked. I did find that the very first part of the film I thought was the most engaging as we're getting into what's going on, and then once we got into it later on, though it was entertaining, I did find it to be just predictable. With all that said, though, this is a film that I recommend for fans of horror comedy. And again, if you're somebody who's already seen the film and you're watching this after the fact, I'm reviewing this before the movie comes out, but if you're watching this after the fact and you've already seen the movie, please leave a comment down below. Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? I definitely want to hear what people have to say about this one. I do think this is a movie that's going to go either way, but I think if you're a fan of shaky cam, found footage films that aren't overly shaky, if you're a fan of movies in the horror genre that just do some something weird and different. I think there's definitely a lot to be enjoyed here. And if you like a lower budget, like kind of do-it-yourself kind of horror film, something in terms of its feel, where you can tell that the people who were making it really just kind of had to use what they had to make the film, I think there's a lot to be enjoyed here, and there's a lot to be admired here. So overall, thumbs up for me. Not the greatest film. I was kind of, hit or miss with some things that happen in the movie and some elements about the film, but overall, I can say that I do think it's a film that's worth watching if you're a fan of these kinds of movies. But again, I say all of this knowing that there very well could be people who watch this movie and think it's trash. So yeah, a big thanks to you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I definitely want to welcome you to hit that subscribe button, as I do continue to get early screeners for Shudder movies. So if you're a fan of Shudder, definitely do that. Hit that like button if you guys enjoyed the video as well. Comment your thoughts on this movie, the video, whatever you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.